Okay, some more impact of it. Okay, the standard of living of the Industrial Revolution, that's what IR means here, is going to rise greatly. And America's standard of living is going to be the highest in the entire world, y'all, for a lot of years because of what we're able to buy, what we're able to have. Urbanization, all these various factories are going to spring up as a result as well, okay? Because as people move to the cities, of course, they're moving there because the factories are going to need them. Sadly, too, y'all, the workplace, as you and I know it, is going to get very, very regimented. Instead of you being able to kind of go to work, at your own house, with your own pace and your own time, and set your own hours and your own prices, instead you become a big cog in the machine, right? They start telling you the time, they'll blow the whistle. You got to be at work. You do certain jobs, okay? And another thing is, it is going to open up a lot of careers for women. For example, women are going to get jobs in typing. I mentioned this kind of before in the other lecture, I think. But as business began to open up, a man's going to develop by the name of Scholes is going to develop a typewriter. And this is going to allow him to type and to do some things. Also, stenography, that is writing down what people say. And when the telephone gets invented in 1876, switchboards. Because of women working, a lot more women, y'all, are going to delay their marriages. And of course, by waiting longer, the time that women can have children is going to be delayed. And the result is going to be smaller families than you had on the farm. When you worked on the farm, man, you had a lot of kids, right? Every kid was like, that's another worker. Yeah, let's go do that again, Okay, so the next thing to talk about here is some terms you guys should know. Monopoly, okay? And monopoly is, think of what the word means here. One, mono, poly, seller. This is a term you got to know. And monopolies really developed during this time. Now, shown back here is the Monopoly board. I know you guys have all played the game. And what is the real goal of Monopoly? The real goal of the game Monopoly, y'all, is to be the sole seller at the end. Drive everybody out of business. Now, what I mean is, that is real Monopoly. Not the wussy Monopoly that people play, man, like where it's like, let's just play for 3 hours, or I'm tired, let's count the money and see who has what's. No. That's wussopoly. Real Monopoly, y'all, you play till everybody's out of business, right? You drive them out of business. When you're the one seller, you can pretty much charge whatever you can get, okay? And by the way, the real Monopoly game was developed during this time. It used to be called Landlord, where your job was to drive all the other landlords out of business, and then you could have the money. I mean, you would have the ability to decide prices. And we're gonna look at this cartoon in some more detail. Now, another thing, y'all, is a trust. Please know the term trust. A trust is essentially a monopoly, but it's basically several different companies. Imagine, y'all, if Walmart and Target came together, right? Now, they might still have the name Walmart and Target, but they essentially were working for the same people. They could pretty much set whatever prices they wanted. And trust, there was a trust for everything. There was the ice trust, the steel trust, the lumber trust. A handful of companies controlled everything and set the prices. So you'll hear me talk about trust quite a bit. Now, the most infamous trust of them all was the Standard Oil Trust. The name Standard meant this was oil that you could trust. I don't mean trust came from that, but it was a standard type of oil. It was the most famous of them. And some people, y'all, they even said, and we'll look at this cartoon in some more detail, Rockefeller was more powerful than the U.S. government, okay? And here is that cartoon, and we're going to go over that in some more detail in just a sec. Now, industrialization, right? What is that? Yeah, turn that down, Mr. D. That is when we began the switch from using animal labor and human labor to using steam power to produce goods, okay? Now, what this ends is what we're called cottage industries. A cottage industry is what people in lots of towns used to have. If you look at this picture here, you see the mother is doing one job, the kids are doing something else, even grandma is over here doing something. And when you had a cottage industry, you could basically set your hours, you could set your prices. You often lived right above where you worked. So you worked with your family, you worked with friends, and you set your own hours and times and wages, right? Well, that comes to an end because there's no way individuals that make stuff can compete with companies that can produce this in mass. And also, and I'm not a Marxist by any means, y'all, but Marx, one of the things I really do believe he got right was his idea, the alienation of labor. It's an amazing essay that he wrote. But what he talked about that had happened is workers were losing their sense of kind of worth because, when I'm an artisan, let's say I make shoes. I make that shoe from beginning to end, and it's my product. It's like something I made, and I can take pride in that shoe. But when it becomes basically I'm somebody that makes maybe just part of the shoe, maybe my job is to thread the laces, maybe my job is to put the little piece at the end of the shoestring, and maybe my job is to just cut the pieces out, and I do that all day. It becomes boring and repetitive, and I lose connection with it. Instead of being an artisan, I become just basically just a worker, and I don't have that real connection. I don't have that sense of real value or worth. And that does happen. And of course, and we'll talk about that too later on in another lecture is how people did really start feeling like they're becoming part of the machine. Now, people begin moving to the cities. This is called urbanization, moving to urban areas. They leave the farms, and of course, they come from other countries as well too, to work in the large factories and the mills, right? Mills are another name for factories, like steel mills and stuff like that. Here you hear one of those at work. Okay. Now, some of the problems with urbanization, with such large growth of people moving to the cities, y'all, there's going to be lots and lots of problems. The number one, or rather I should say, number two, was going to be pollution and stuff like that. And of course, you and I might think pollution is bad today. You guys don't know how much better it is today than it was when I was a kid. Oh my gosh. We really cleaned up stuff. I know we got a lot further way to go. I mean, we used to call Pasadena Stinkadena. And we said, why is this color green? Because the air is greener in Pasadena and stuff like that. But the pollution they had was even worse, y'all, because these cities were what we call walking cities in the early days. People walked to their work. So your house, your apartment might be a block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks away from the factory. Just imagine, y'all, like a refinery in the middle of town. That's what it was like. And then pollution was just dropping down all on you, and it was awful. And there was no limits. Air pollution, water pollution. The stuff was just dumped into the rivers, y'all. And it was just awful, the smell and everything like that. So you have air, water pollution is a big, big problem. Number two, and it is, get it, number two was sanitation, toilets. Now, you and I take sewage for granted, right? An amazing thing happens. You and I go to the restroom. We do what we got to do. We flush it, and it all disappears, right? You ever think about how cool that was when you thought about it when you didn't have water pressure? Because I sure did, right? And you had to kind of, it just was unpleasant to talk about. But what happened, y'all, was people used to just go to the bathroom, what's called a chamber pot. There's an old saying that if somebody's really poor, they don't have a pot to what in, right? That you would go to the bathroom in a chamber pot and you would throw it into the backyard. Some people would throw it out onto the road where it would dry up, and or it would become part of the mud if it rained. If it dried up and the wind blowed, you might get in your eye. And it wasn't just human poop, right? Human crap, human urine. Think of the animals. These people before the car still depended on horses. And horses make, I think it's something like 25 to 50 pounds of manure in a day. I haven't counted lately. It depends on the horse, right? But they make a lot of poop. So imagine, a horse just being, everybody had horses. They were tied up places. Imagine what that must have been like, y'all. And then, of course, just traffic and problems and overcrowdedness in there, transportation problems in the cities. Those just had to be just absolutely awful, okay? And then you had just the overcrowding in the tenements, and I'll talk about this picture in some more detail.